Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your Leeds United versus Aston Villa preview. And as you can see, I've obviously titled this video Daniel Farke's Last Chance. And I do think that's where we're getting to really at this moment in time. I think if Daniel Farke was to lose this game heavily, I do think his position would potentially be untenable. Obviously, the big decision lies with the San Francisco 49ers, as we're all aware of. But I do think what we will see in the Aston Villa game, which potentially we haven't seen yet so far this season, is a toxicity around the football club and a toxicity in the crowd. I think we obviously saw murmurs of that at Forest, but I don't think we saw a majority saying that in the crowd. I think you maybe saw 40, maybe 50% talking in the crowd and maybe acting negatively towards the team after the game. But I don't think we've seen that so far. Whereas I think actually, if Leeds United are maybe 2-3-0 down at halftime, I think you could see the fans start to turn against Leeds United. For the record, I don't actually think we'll be 2 or 3-0 down, because I think truthfully going into this game, which I think no one said, I think everyone's almost got this game as a write-off. I really don't buy that. I think you look at this game and you look at the underlying stats and what Leeds United have done at home and what Aston Villa have done away. I think it's quite an even split in my personal opinion. Aston Villa so far this season have played 5 away games and they've got 5 points. Leeds United have currently so far this season played 5 home games and they've got 8 points. So let's not pretend that this is going to be a complete write-off game for Leeds United. Yes, Aston Villa are on a great run. We've obviously just come back from the international break though, and I think that momentum that potentially Villa have built up could have dropped. And I think with Leeds United, obviously, we were on a downturn, and I think we were playing poorly, obviously, the last 2 weeks. It's blatantly obvious that was the case. But I think getting back to Ellen Road, having that international break, getting away, a lot of players went on international break, come back as a fresh. And I think we can challenge this game. I don't think we've played poorly in any home game so far this season. I think we've played well in every home game this season. So I don't really see this as a write-off game at all. And I think this is a game that, truthfully, Leeds United should be targeting points in. Anyway, let's get on to Daniel Farke's press conference and we'll talk a bit about his predicted 11, my predicted Daniel Farke 11 for this game. Let's get into it. So for anyone that missed it, Daniel Farke provided us with a positive update going into the Aston Villa game, stating that every single player is fit to play against Aston Villa, which is obviously the news we all wanted. But this is the team that I think Daniel Farke will go with. This is my predicted 11. Don't worry, this is not the 11 I would pick, but this is the 11 I think that Daniel Farke will pick. So I think he'll go with Perry in goal. I think he'll go Bogle right back, Rodon. I think he'll go Biol, Goodmanson, Ampadu, Stack. Longstaff, Okafor, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Aronson on the right-hand side. If there's anyone that I think could change in this team, which I think there is, I think some of them are sort of 50-50 shouts at this moment in time, and I think there's 3 of them. I think Nemecha, because of what he did in the Nottingham Forest game, could get the nod over Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I do think Calvert-Lewin will play this one. I think when Dominic Calvert-Lewin's at full fitness, he'll probably play every game for the most part. And on the right-hand side, maybe because of what Daniel Farke said in his press conference when he talked up Dan James, he might start over Brendan Aronson, but I still think he'll start Brendan Aronson on the right-hand side, in my personal opinion. And the only other one I think, and I do think they'll stick with Biol, but I do think there is a potential that it goes back to Pascal Struijk. Well, the question you're probably all asking at home is, how would I change this team? What would I do differently? Because I think fundamentally there needs to be instant change in this team. I think we've got to see a shake-up now. I think we've tried Daniel Farke's style and the players and the personnel that he wanted, and it's not working. We've had 2 really poor results on the spin now. So we need a shake-up, in my personal opinion. So there's a few players that I would change from Daniel Farke's team that I think he will pick. First of all, for me, I would take Biol out. I've been tossing and turning over this all day, to be honest, because I almost feel like Biol hasn't had enough of a chance yet. Maybe he's only played 3 games, obviously, as well as that game against Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup. But he's only played 3 league games. But the performances for me from Biol just haven't been good enough. I think he looked shaky in the West Ham game. Again, we obviously conceded a goal in, although it was late on. We conceded 3 against Brighton with him in the team when I didn't think he played that well. And we conceded 3 against Forest, and I didn't think he played that well in that game either. So I think I would go back to Pascal Struijk, and I do think the stats back up that. With Biol in the team, we've conceded 2.3 goals on average, just over 2.3 goals. But with Pascal Struijk in the team, yes, the sample size is big. I think he's played 8 games compared to Biol's 3. But Pascal Struijk, we've only conceded 1.6 goals per game, and that's including that 5-0 drubbing over Arsenal, which he obviously played in as well, which obviously skews the numbers slightly. So I just think I think Rodon looks more stable with Pascal Struijk. I think Perry looks more stable with Struijk, and I think Struijk gives you that on the ball work that I don't think we've seen with Biol as well. And I think when we're trying to play the system that we are trying to under Daniel Farke, of keeping it on the ground and playing through the thirds. You want Pascal Struijk in the team. He's the best ball-playing centre-back we've got at the football club. So for me, probably, I'd go back to Pascal Struijk. But I think that one is a 50-50, just because of Biol's lack of minutes. But I do think I'd go with Struijk. The other change that I would personally make to this team is I'd drop Brendan Aronson on the right-hand side. I think Brendan Aronson, this experiment has to end at some point. It has to end. It's not worked. Let's accept it's not worked. He's not a right winger, in my opinion. He's a number 10. I know people seem to think he plays better on the right. I haven't seen that person. I don't think he's a brilliant number 10, but I don't think he's a right winger. So I think this experiment has to end. I just don't think Daniel Farke will do it, because I think when we listen to what Daniel Farke said in his press conference, he talked about the fact that he likes his wingers inverting as much as possible. And one actually the main criticisms that he's had for our wingers so far is that they haven't inverted enough. But because Brendan Aronson is naturally number 10, I think he likes to play him there because naturally, because of his natural number 10 nature, he will naturally invert, and I think that's why he's picking him fundamentally. I don't think it's just the off the ball work. But for me, I would go back to Wilfried Gnonto on the right hand side. I think in every way, Gnonto's a better player. I think he's better on the ball. I think he's got a better shot. I think his decision making's better. I don't think there's much really, to be honest, that you can get from Brett Aronson. You can't get from Wilfried Gnonto. Maybe his defensive work's slightly better, but we're at home in this game. We've got to try push forward. So for me, Gnonto should start on the right hand side, and I think just about that's the team I would go with. I think there's potential for Tanaka in the midfield, but I think I want the physicality probably of Stack and Longstaff. Anyway, let's put the Aston Villa team on and see how they are going to line up for this one now as well. So this is how I expect Aston Villa to line up then. And there actually has been a few complication and injury concerns in the Villa camp sort of over the international break. Obviously with Ezri Konsa missing, I think, a game for England, a bit of training as well. However, Unai Emery has talked in his press conference about the fact that Ezri Konsa will be available and be fit for this one. So I expect him to start centre-back. He also talked a bit about Onana in the midfield as well. I think he's probably a coin toss if he's going to play in this one or not. Obviously, they've got Yuri Tillemans, who, although he's a different profile, can fit in there if they need to as well. But I expect that is the team, all being well, that Villa go with at the weekend. But how can Leeds United get this Villa team, and what are Villa's strengths? Well, I think Villa's strengths naturally are central spaces. They obviously play McGinn, as you can see on the right-hand side there. They play Buendia, who are both central players out wide. And what that creates, actually, is massive overloads in the middle of the park, and it will surround Ethan Ampadu. Sort of when they're attacking through the channels, and they try to get Buendia in this gap here, McGinn in this gap here as well, and that's a really good way that Aston Villa find chances, by creating central space overloads. But Leeds United then, I think, can exploit that in a number of ways, because what you end up finding is, because McGinn's quite narrow and you get Buendia quite narrow, if a transition happens quickly and say Rodon wings the ball quickly, you might find McGinn and Buendia in these central spaces, which means if you get the ball out to Bogle quickly, you can actually form counter-attacks out wide quickly, and if we can get Bogle high quickly, we should see early crosses go into Calvert-Lewin to create really good chances. So I think that's one of the ways that we can get at this Aston Villa team. I also think for this game as well, because of where the situation lies at this moment in time with Leeds United, I think we've got to start early. I think we've got to start early, and I think we've got to start fast. And I think we've got to get at this Villa team early in the game and hopefully get the lead in the game. What I can't see and what I don't want to see is Leeds United sit off first 20 minutes, not come out aggressive, almost like we have done in the last two games away from home, and find ourselves down early in the game, because I think it goes like that. It could be a really long day for Leeds United on Sunday and not get the outcome that we sort of require in the game. But the other thing to mention with this central spacing with Villa, which I think is really interesting, is I think it's important that Stack and Longstaff play for that reason, because if we are going to be sort of trying to control central space and stop Villa going through the middle of the pitch like we see, we're going to have physicality in the midfield, and I think that's why Stack and Longstaff should play in this one. And the final thing I want to mention about the midfield, which I think is an interesting point to bring up, is Leeds United in build-up so far this year compared to last year, and I've mentioned this a few times actually, but we play with a single pivot now. We play with two number 8s and a sort of single pivot, whereas last season obviously we played with two number 6s / number 8s, and we played with a number 10. And this is the style I'd rather us go back to. I'm happy with this personnel playing. I'm happy with Stack, Ampadu and Longstaff in the midfield 3. But I think a little tweak in possession could be really beneficial to help Leeds build out from the back. So for me, I would play Stack as a DM and play two number 6s in there, because I think this will help us in build-up get out. Because a lot of the time what I see is when we play these two 8s here, is that when we get into Ampadu in this midfield thing, in this midfield space here, he basically gets compacted, and Rodgers gets tight, and Buendia will get tight, and so will McGinn, and Ampadu will really struggle to sort of transition the ball into the second third of the pitch. So I do think, to help with build-up and to give us more passing lanes, adding Stack into a number 6 position in build-up could be really beneficial for that. Obviously, the way of doing that as well, if you want to do, which we've seen with Man City and other sort of good football clubs, is to split your sort of your back 3 here, or your back 4 here, and then bring one of your wing backs in, or your full backs into the middle as well. So you could build up in a sort of 3-2-2 system, which we see quite a lot as well with teams. So there's 2 ways of doing it there, but I think one of these ways is something that Leeds United are definitely going to have to do if they are going to be victorious in this game. Also, I think naturally with Leeds United, I'm looking at set pieces as a real positive. I'm hoping our physicality can help us in this game as well, like usual. And like always, I'm hoping Noah Okafor can have a good game, although Matty Cash has had an excellent campaign for Aston Villa, this team. But I think their potential pluses for Leeds United. But as I said, the main thing for me in this game is you've got to start early. You've got to start on the front foot, and you've got to start winning corners and hopefully get that early goal. I think that should help us if we do. But yeah, let's get into the score prediction anyway for this one. So, how do I expect this game to go then? Well, Leeds United do not have a particularly good record against Aston Villa. In fact, we are winless against Villa in our last 5, losing 3 and drawing 2. And I'd actually have to take it all the way back to October 2020, was the last time we actually beat Aston Villa in what I would describe as the Patrick Bamford game. The game he managed a hat-trick in away at Villa Park in obviously a fantastic 3-0 win at the start of Bielsa's first Premier League campaign. So yeah, we've not a great record against Villa, but truthfully, I don't always buy into this historical data because we've got a different manager, different players, and even the 49ers now own 100% of the club, which at the time they owned, 25%. So there's massive differences, of course. But it doesn't fill you with confidence, I must admit. But I actually see this game coming up, and I've thought about this all week about how this game is going to go, and I see it going 2 ways. I see either a sort of puff out your chest performance that we've seen from Leeds United at home so far this season, like we saw against Everton, like we saw, in my opinion, against West Ham a bit, especially in that first half an hour, like we've seen, to be honest, in all the home games against Leeds United. Or, alternatively, we go into the performances that we saw away at Forest, the performance we saw away at Brighton. And it has been more, obviously, away performances. I don't think we've been that bad at home. But if we go into that style away from home, I really worry about Leeds United on Sunday. I think it could get toxic in the ground. I think it could be a really negative atmosphere. And I think Leeds United, if it goes that way and we start playing in that vein without courage on the ball, the lack of a press, everything that we've talked about on this channel, I think Leeds United could be soundly beaten actually on Sunday because Villa are a good team on a good run. So I think it could, I don't think it could go almost 3-0. But I'm not fully convinced on that. And I actually, even though I've said it could go 1 or 2 ways, I actually think it's probably going to end in a draw, this one. I do. I think this, if I was to give a prediction, I would go 1-1 for this one particularly. I think Leeds United play really well in it, and I think we will almost do a puff out our chest performance, quote unquote, and I think that's how it'll end up. And I don't think a draw's an awful result, but with the games coming up, I think probably need more. But that's how I expect it to go. Anyway, let me all know your predictions in the comments below. And also, I want to say a massive thank you to Ellen Back, who provides all the stats for these previews, and also thank you to you guys watching. But if you have got to this point and you have enjoyed it, if you could drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massive helps the channel and boosts it in the algorithm, allows other people who like this sort of content to see it as well. So if you could do that, it'd be fantastic. And finally, as well as this new hype button thing, so if you could press that and give me some hype, whatever it is, then that will be fantastic too. But other than that, I will see you tomorrow for Leeds United's match reaction against Aston Villa, and also we'll do a closing whistle at 8 PM as well, which is less of an emotional reaction as well to the game. So see you then. But other than that, thanks for watching, and bye for now. Bye for now.